bottom line, people say SROs in schools make students safer. Does your research back that up?
No, no. In fact, the research generally doesn't tend to back that up. And I should be careful in saying that because there is some disagreement. There have been some studies showing that police officers in schools can prevent some crime and misbehavior, but there are far greater numbers of studies finding the opposite, that they either have no impact or in some cases can increase crime. What they do all show consistently is that while we're not sure about any benefits, there are clear and consistent problems with putting police in schools.
So let's explore that a little bit. Pull at the onion there. What are we talking about when we're talking about problems? What is your research showing?
Well, there are a number of problems. One is increasing suspensions. Now, most police will tell you they don't do school discipline, and sound practice is that they shouldn't be doing discipline. And what I mean by that is enforcing rules that might be against the school's code of conduct, but aren't legal violations, aren't criminal. And yet what we see consistently is when we put more police in schools, we see more suspensions. So they are still having an impact on that. We see greater racial disparity where these increasing suspensions aren't across the board, but they're clustered among students of color in particular. We see greater numbers of arrests, and not necessarily for very severe crime, but for the most, we see greater numbers. We see greater numbers of arrests, and not necessarily for things like guns or drugs or what we're all afraid of, but for more minor things that are unfortunate, but perhaps don't need to result in an arrest record. Something like 2 kids getting in a fight after school.
So how do you go against this? I hate to use the word myth because that's a loaded word, but this, when we talk to a lot of people, oh, this is making our children safer. And I know right there nearby you in Virginia, just south of you, there was an entire gubernatorial campaign based on putting SROs in every school, including elementary schools. And yet our analysis of the OCR data, the Civil Office of Civil Rights, shows Virginia has the highest rate of arrest. So is there sort of, when you have more SROs, you have more arrest?
Yes.
Yeah, Virginia disputes that, but what would you say to that?
I think the data are clear. Again, there is an important outcome is whether they're promoting safety, and there's some uncertainty. The majority of the evidence suggests that they're not promoting safety. Another concern is about school shootings, and there is no evidence to suggest that putting police in schools can prevent or mitigate the harm caused during a shooting. So my response is that the data are clear, that SROs simply don't seem to be promoting safety, but do come with other harms.
So what's the solution? We all want children safe. I don't think anybody's saying we don't want children safe. Mm-hmm. How do you mitigate this? How do you address this? How do you reduce the number of arrests when there's an increase in SROs?
That's a great question. I think that the first issue is trying to reduce the myth that you talked about before and being clear about the evidence and what the evidence does and does not show, and reducing the number of police officers we have in our schools. We can take those resources and invest them in strategies that we know have a much better chance of success at keeping students safe, adding to the mental health care that we provide our children, investing in school social climate where students feel more a part of their school, that they're cared for, that they're a part of something that they belong to. These strategies have a much greater promise of keeping our students safe.